What? Shit. My feelings on Infinite Loop as a whole are complex and not really all that favorable. At first, the book looked like it was going to be a laser light show of fun time travel-y goodness. It had a strong female lead that was independent, yet relatable in her struggle to understand her value in the scope of all space and time. Hooray! Fun, high-thought science fiction set on exploring love, worth, purpose, and other uniquely human values, juxtaposed against an unfeeling and endless universe that couldn't give a toot if we existed at all. But turns out, not hooray. As the series progressed, it began to morph into a cross between a romance and an op-ed piece, which I guess would have been fine, but the series confused love with codependency and intelligently discussing a point with yelling things. Despite the book's numerous extra-wordy flaws, there is one positive that you pretty much can't argue. This is a really pretty book. Elsa Chartier puts on a jetpack and blasts onto the comic book scene with one of the most incredible looking books I have ever seen. Not only is her line and color work on point, and not only is her style wholly her own, but she just has a ton of fun playing with the reality warping elements of the book's story. Hunks of the universe break away and disappear into the void, perspective and space are exploited, dialogue coagulates into propagandal art as it leaves characters' mouths, and decades of time are bent and compressed into single panels. Chartier has two rad little tricks that I don't see anywhere else in the industry. First, her style allows her to move the reader's eyes in very tricky ways. Color and shapes direct you to points of emphasis and convey mood without you really ever knowing what's going on. And second, she has a really good feel for when it's time to say, hey, screw you panels, your lame squares can't hold my Technicolor voodoo, I'm gonna do my own thing. And it's gonna be so out of control, it's gonna start redirecting your blood flow. This is really her greatest strength. Chartier has no peer when it comes to directing a story in a formless space. She embraces the dysfunction of being outside of space and time and welds it beautifully to complementary story beats and character moments. She understands the confusing and contradictory nature of time travel stories and takes it as a permission slip to do wacky and daring things, but does them in a way that organizes the book's completely undisciplined story. Dear comic books, give her more work. Of all the things that go into making a comic book, I have the hardest time commenting on art. I just don't know that much about the deeper science that goes into drawing and design, nor do I have an eye for the subtle ways that great art separates itself from exceptional art. I don't know anything about things like color theory or composition. I don't have an intimate understanding of the artistic intricacies of the human form, or a comprehensive knowledge of how to effectively capture cinematic feel and sequential storytelling. But here's the thing. You don't need to have a deeply drilled well of understanding in any of those topics to know that Sean Murphy is the freaking Omega Jesus of comic book art. All you have to do is look at the dude's work. The guy is just made of magic. He does things that shouldn't be possible. His work is hyper detailed and expressive, yet it still maintains this rough sketch look, and that look builds a style that is as unique as a snowflake's fingerprint. Yes, his male characters are dimensioned with the huge chest, long thick arms, and square chins that have been malignant throughout the history of comic book art. Yet he takes that style and makes it feel fresh and new and wholly his own. But the real power behind Murphy's art is that it just feels so authentic. The panels have an absurd amount of detail. Background settings are given just as much love as foreground action, which lends to this feel that each panel is a window into an unabridged world that has existed without your observation for eons and will continue to exist long after you've expired. Characters feel like the product of long nights spent in a drawing room whose floor is covered with crinkled redesigns. Their poses are functional and their faces are expressive. Action is flashy and never lost between panels, and Murphy has a real panache for communicating things to readers through non-conventional means, mostly by using things like perspective, lighting, and inlaid panels. I mean, fuck. Artists that are this mechanically exceptional while also demonstrating a mastery of storytelling are a commodity that the industry is not always blessed with. They're generational talents, and I would definitely say that Sean Murphy is just that. A generational talent. A dude that by the time his career has come to a close will have his name held up next to other dudes that have turned paper and sketches into immortality. So, who the hell topped that? Wow. I mean, Jesus. Look at this page. I mean, just watch as I pan it down. Okay, let's break it down a little bit. Look at all the ways this thing is speaking to the reader without using words. Look how it communicates a break in reality without being heavy-handed. Then over here, it allows 4 panels to present one shift in emotion. This is meant to demonstrate a passage of time that is not great, but is meant to feel like a long time. Look how the art is disciplined enough to provide heavy detail in the foreground, but almost none in the background. This subtly builds ambiance and mood. And also, look at how much thought is put into the positioning of the characters and the details in the environment, so that each speech bubble is not only centrally placed, but also non-intrusive. I mean, come on! I didn't even pick one of the dude's amazing choreographed action sequences, or one of his deliberately laid out openings to dissect. I picked a boring-ass one, where 2 people are just sitting in a room, talking at each other. Say a grand total of 18 words and don't move at all. And there's still that much going on under the hood. And he does this 22 to 35 times every single issue, every single month. Greg Capullo has earned his reputation as one of the industry's most anal and detail-focused artists. He has often been quoted in interviews as saying that he's a dedicated student of human anatomy and physiology, possessing an intimate understanding of how muscles lay under the skin and the positional limitations of the human musculoskeletal system. He studied these things to make sure that his characters act and move like real people, so that pretty much makes him the anti-Rob Liefeld. As unnecessary as Capullo's study may sound, it works. The functional movement and grounded proportions of Capullo's characters make their interactions feel genuine and immersive and adds a real feeling of brutality and consequence to the action scenes. His rendering of Gotham and the various cycles that populate it is immediately embodying of how we as Batman fans see Gotham in our minds. This is the most satisfying version of the Batman universe we have seen since Batman the Animated Series. The buildings are gothic in design and marred with industrial decay. Every brick, lamppost, and fire hydrant screams out a feeling of hopeless victimization. Every skyline is ominously colored and overbearing. Panels are intimately framed and meticulously planned. What really punts Capullo up to the top spot this year is how he has shepherded the series through an era of great change. 2015 saw a new Batman don a new suit and battle a new villain. Capullo owned all this change and used it as an excuse to go absolutely buck wild. His designs got bolder and more referential to the try, fail, and retry nature of the creative process. The confidence of his work sold some creative choices that would have been a bridge too far in the hands of a less talented artist. He saw an opportunity to slap his fingerprints all over the history of Batman, and he did it with the glee of a hardened fanboy and the clarity of a savant. Greg Capullo's work on Batman has been the most iconic run by any artist on any book in the past 10 years, and 2015 has housed the man's best work yet. So there you go, Greg. Can I call you Greg? I'm gonna call you Greg. You win the Photoshop trophy this year. Make sure you check out the work of all these talented artists and make sure you give them your monies. And make sure you share your favorite artists from 2015 in the comments below. I will see you again in 2 weeks when I hand out my Best Writer of the Year award. Make sure you guys get your angry comment typing gloves on for that one, because who I pick is really gonna rile y'all up.